So in this segment, we're going to be talking about Vote Leave's broken promises to cut energy bills in poor areas. After Vote Leave's broken promises to cut energy bills, poorer areas risk being shortchanged by Brexit too. So the UK said one of the reasons to leave the EU is to cut VAT on things like energy. Now, Michael Gove and the Wonder Clown have refused to cut VAT on energy, which, cutting VAT on energy won't be the end all and be all. It's not going to be of absolute help to people, and there's no way to guarantee that the savings will be passed on to consumers. We saw it previously where I think Labour had cut VAT under Gordon Brown, and then people were like, we're not seeing the savings, and companies were like, meh. So ever since Boris Johnson and Michael Gove joined forces on the Vote Leave campaign, a dark alliance, in 2016, their political fates have been closely entwined, which is true. They have been, it was the best of times, it was the blessed of times, as the monkey who wrote Montgomery Burns' novel would say. It's funny, I love that bit, I love it. From that famous photo of them looking shell-shocked at their victory the morning after the referendum, have they got a picture of that? Yeah, they do. Yeah. Oh, they look absolutely rattled. Though Gove's knifing of Johnson in the subsequent Tory leadership race and onto their complex relationship as PM and cabinet minister, there's a fascinating dynamic. Does anyone remember that, where Gove was like, Boris Johnson is not fit to be prime minister, and absolutely shivved him, and it was glorious. And then we got Theresa May, but that was glorious for those few minutes there. Absolutely glorious. And today, the Levelling Up Secretary echoed the Prime Minister in dismissing calls to cut VAT on energy to help ease energy price rises, a policy that was once a key Vote Leave selling point. And this was before the energy crisis that we're seeing. In case you missed it, 6 years ago, Michael Gove and Johnson penned a joint article in The Sun arguing that when we Vote Leave, we'll be able to scrap this unfair tax, adding this crucial promise, and energy bills will be lower for everyone. And yet energy bills are higher for everyone. And yes, there is a global energy crisis. However, let's not forget that we are out of the EU's internal energy market, which makes us more vulnerable to price rises. So that's fun, isn't it? The pledge looks particularly hollow given the spike in prices millions have endured, with more to come in April. But the Prime Minister himself distanced himself from his own 2016 pledge. And I think that Max covered it in a video where some lady, a Brexiteer, was like, the Vote Leave campaign and the government are very different, when that's simply not the case. The Prime Minister distanced himself, saying that a VAT cut would be a bit of a blunt instrument, and its blanket nature would mean savings for those who don't need it, which is true. That, a VAT cut would benefit the people who pay the highest in energy bills, which is typically richer people, because if you have a four-floor mansion, you're going to want your four-floor mansion to be warm, so you're going to pay a high energy bill. So to an extent, they're correct. The problem is that maybe they can cut VAT on bills that are lower than a certain amount. That would be a good way to do it, because they're not going to do direct support, because that's more socialism, more. Gove today struck firmly to that line, arguing that a balanced approach means that we can provide most of those in the most difficult circumstances. Well, do it then, help then. Labour have already come out with a plan, which, I'd have to look at the specifics to know how good it is, but they have offered to cut the VAT tax, and they have offered direct support to people. Where is the government in doing this? Help will be targeted at those in most need, yet you haven't helped anyone, and you've cut the universal credit, which has put people in a closer situation to and people, to be fair, are already in this situation of, do I heat my house or do I eat food? Do I buy food? Honestly, it's a joke that we lived in a so-called developed country and people still have to make these calculations. Pain. However, there is another Brexit bonus that hasn't quite materialised as expected. Either and one of those is about levelling up, because that's not going to happen. The government's plans to replace EU cash for poorer areas known as structural funds and a new UK shared prosperity fund due to launch in April. But buried in the recent spending review was the hard reality about its funding. As a member of the EU, the UK received £1.3 billion a year for structural funding, so this went predominantly to poorer areas to help them. That's what this was about. The Treasury, and this went to poorer areas. There was no pork barrel politics involved in this. No fighting over constituency votes. This went to the areas who generally needed it. The Treasury has allocated the new UK Shared Prosperity Fund just 0.4 billion for the year 2020 to 23. When we desperately need money and stimulus, the government decide to cut it dramatically. 0.7 billion for 2023-24 and 1.5 billion for 24-25, which you could argue is higher than the initial fund, but we don't know if I'm sure someone could find out actually if the UK would have been allocated more than 1.3 billion as the years go by. That's quite a shortfall. It's a huge shortfall. You're talking billions of pounds lost essentially for these areas, and typically these are red wall areas who voted for Brexit and then voted Tory. How do you feel now? Are you going to continue to vote Tory now? Moreover, Scottish, Welsh and Northern Ireland governments, which used to oversee the EU's cash for their localities, have been given no guarantees of their role in the new setup and may be subjected to a more centralised approach by Whitehall. And who do you think Whitehall is going to give the money to? They're going to give the money predominantly to Tory constituencies, especially swing seats, to keep them. We've already just seen a story where that MP who left, Wakefield, was threatened to see school cuts, school budget cuts, if he defected to the Labour Party. This is what they will do here with this money. They're going to give it to the people who need it. They're going to give it to certain constituencies to keep them sweet. With English councils still in the dark too. English councils who, again, will desperately need the money. It feels like it will be London that takes back control of this spending, not local areas, which was, I thought, the point of Brexit. Take back control, from these unelected bureaucrats, and instead give it to certain elected people and certain bureaucrats within Whitehall. It's a joke. There is also a reminder that no matter what Johnson and Gove pledged 6 years ago, it's Sunak who holds the purse strings by which levelling up will be judged. And the thing is, he's against levelling up because he's a Thatcherite. He doesn't like all this public spending. He doesn't like the furlough scheme. At least in my opinion, he doesn't. But the problem is the things that he doesn't like are the things that made him popular. Honestly. The delays in getting the structural funds for the very large areas that backed Brexit risk further undermining confidence in former Leave voters. The question is, what are they going to do about it? We're already seeing cuts to their areas. They're going to see it soon. They're going to see those cuts. What are they going to do? That's the key question here, because I am getting a bit bored of just dunking on these people. At some point, they have to take responsibility with their votes. Their votes have impacts, as we have seen from the 2019 election. If you don't believe unless you live in a safe seat, unless you believe that voting has no impact, look at the 2019 election and look at the damage the Tories have done. Honestly, just have a look. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Oh, and support on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.